All right, my friends, J.R. Dukes at your service. Appreciate everybody being with me today. Thank you very much. I just hit the go button, so let's make sure everybody can hear me and everything sounds good. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Come on in, introduce yourself. If you would put in the comment exactly where you are from, your name, and say hello real quick, I would appreciate it. Let me just make sure everybody can hear me and that we are coming through loud and clear. All right, looks like everything is working on my end. Let me say hello real quick to all my friends on the X platform. Appreciate everybody being here. On X, of course, I am simply at Reach JR Dukes. And right here on YouTube, at JR Dukes. And my friend on Twitch, thank you all for being here. Especially appreciate all my regular folks that tune in and talk about today's news and the events that concern us all. If you have any questions, or if you have any concerns, please put it in the comments now. We do have what I call a open chat platform. And basically what that means is you are more than welcome to join our conversation. I'm going to put the link in right here. Okay, you can simply click on that link I just typed in the chat. If you don't want to be on camera using your phone on your regular cell phone, you don't have to. A lot of people are camera shy. I get it. Not a problem. You can simply call in any kind of comment or question that you have. You'll pull up like magic on my screen, and we can have a conversation together. For all of my regular friends, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, I am JR Dukes. I am your host. Sometimes I feel like Mr. Rourke. I don't know if you all are old enough to remember Fantasy Island from years ago, but we used to love, my sisters and I, playing Mr. Rourke. I am your host, blah, blah, blah. It's kind of dates me a little bit, but it is what it is. At any rate, I am all about ending indoctrination. I love to help everybody live their best life possible, and I do that by helping you understand the world that we live in. I love to focus on current events, politics, and our legal system, asset protection, anything and everything to do with the courts, police misconduct, how to deal with police. That's what this channel is all about. And if you like those type of topics, you have found your brand new home. So again, please introduce yourself. Let me know you're in the chat and say hello. We're going to go ahead and jump right into what we got on the agenda for today. Just a quick thing. We have Fani Willis, sweet Fani Willis of Fulton County, Georgia, fame, and her lover boy, AKA Nathan Wade. We just love old Nathan Wade, don't we? And sweet Fani, there was a decision that we're going to talk about by the Georgia Court of Appeals today. Additionally, we have a ruling from Judge Merchant out of New York City, and that lawfare that continues, unfortunately, against President Donald Trump. We're going to talk about the Ukraine war. There is some developments pertaining to Alex Jones. Are you familiar with Alex Jones? We're going to talk about some interesting developments in his asset protection situation. I should say the judgment that was taken against him, and lessons that we may be able to learn as far as asset protection is concerned. Additionally, it looks like Elon Musk has come to his rescue, but we'll see how this all plays out, and we'll see how much of this we get through as time allows. This is our power hour. I try to keep it to an hour. Sometimes it doesn't work like that. And then, of course, we always feature the Dukes feed, and we will cover the stories on certain video clips that I think is important for us all to take a peek at together. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into what I want to talk about first thing, and that has to do with sweet Fani Willis. Oh, just can't get enough of Fani Willis, right? We've talked about her on this program many times, and there was a kind of a decision today. Oddly enough, if you recall, the Judge Merchant out of Fulton County, you know, this case has been nothing but lawfare against President-elect Donald Trump. I guess it's fair to call him President-elect now instead of just President Donald Trump or former President Donald Trump. We have discussed in excruciating detail all of the events pertaining to this case and just how unfair this entire situation is, how unjust Fani Willis has used her power that she wields there in the county seat of Fulton County, Georgia. And of course, with her lover boy, Nathan Wade, how they, in my opinion, have clearly conspired to basically milk the taxpayers of Fulton County and de facto the taxpayers of Georgia at large. Last time we talked about this case, Donald Trump, Ashley Merchant. It was really Ashley Merchant. I can't say enough good things about her. She represents one of the defendants there, Michael Roman, in that particular case. And remember, this case had allegedly to do with so-called interference in the election of 2020 there in Georgia. Again, just a bunch of nonsense. This case was not brought up until Donald Trump decided he was going to run against President Biden and seek the presidency again for 2024. This was all an effort, a clear effort, an orchestrated effort to stop Donald Trump cold in his tracks. And of course, we remember him going in for that famous or infamous, depending on your take on it, this photo that was broadcast all over the world. And of course, it's on a lot of t-shirts. A lot of people have come to love that photo. It was an iconic photo. But today, the Georgia Court of Appeals mysteriously, just all of a sudden, with really no explanation, decided, hey, we're going to go ahead and remove the case that was set, I think it was December 5th or December 6th, for oral argument in front of the Georgia Court of Appeals. Judge, what was it? The judge, the original judge in this particular case, decided that he was not going to allow the district attorney to continue with this case out of Fulton County, aka FANI WILLIS, the way it has been going. He said that either the entire DA's office had to take themselves off the case, or FANI WILLIS or Nathan Wade had to leave the case, and they chose to have Nathan Wade. He resigned from the case, and FANI WILLIS decided, well, you know what? I think I will appeal it. It's kind of hard to understand how this Judge McAfee, Judge McAfee is the judge's name on this case. My opinion was, and if you remember, we've talked about this, and that was that this judge was all about politics. Unfortunately, my friends, in the state of Georgia and many places around the United States, these judges are elected. They're elected. They're not appointed. And when you have elected judges carrying out so-called justice, it just messes everything up, because these judges have to play to their local constituency. They have to do what they think will get them elected. And that's unfortunate. It's unfair. It needs to be reformed. Georgia has taken steps to at least look at that particular process, and they have appointed a Senate committee that can overlook these prosecutors, DAs, before they bring charges, or at least investigate issues or alleged issues involving some type of malfeasance or misconduct. So here we are. Finally, the Georgia Court of Appeals said, and we'll go ahead and take a look at this article together. This is from the Epcot Times. Georgia Appeals Court cancels oral argument for Trump bid to disqualify FANI Willis. So FANI Willis appealed this to the Georgia Court of Appeals. I am kind of shocked that they took it off, but I think I have an understanding and at least a theory as to why they have done this. And it's not good news for FANI Willis. A judge in Georgia had allowed prosecutor FANI Willis to continue participating in the case despite a move to disqualify her. And of course, there's a picture of sweet FANI Willis. I want to say hello real quick to a couple of comments here. Rosemary Fiera, thank you for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to have you in the chat. Thank you for being here. All right. And of course, our new friend, Jude, thank you for being here. Still can't pronounce black names properly. Oh, is that a swipe at me? Well, Jude, the reality is I choose to call her what I choose to call her. Her name to me is Fanny. She can call it whatever she wants, Fanny or whatever. But this is my channel. It's my life. It's my mouth. And I'll call her what I choose to call her. That's just the way it is. If you would rather call her something else, you go right ahead and do so. But I appreciate your opinion just the same. All right, moving on. This picture here of FANI Willis, Fulton County District Attorney FANI Willis, speaks at a news conference at the Fulton County Government Building in Atlanta, Georgia. So just a picture from last year that they put up here. Now, continuing on, the Georgia Court of Appeals has canceled a scheduled oral argument over prosecutor FANI Willis. FANI Willis's continued. Oh, by the way, if you noticed on here, here's a spelling error right here. They got FANI Willis with an apostrophe S instead of just a apostrophe. It's very unusual to see mistakes like that, but I digress. Okay, what the prosecutor was, the Georgia Court of Appeals has canceled a scheduled oral argument over prosecutor FANI Willis's continued participation in the election case against President-elect Donald Trump and various co-defendants. The oral argument, scheduled to take place on December 5th, like we talked about, at 10:30 a.m., is hereby canceled until further order of this court. The brief ordered on November 18th today reads, as I said a minute ago, it was very blunt, very quick. It did not have a lot of reasoning. It had no reasoning. It had nothing on there other than what we just stated as outlined in this article here. The case stemmed from Fulton County Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee's ruling that allowed Willis to continue participating in the case despite a move to disqualify her. Willis came under fire early this year for her romantic relationship with a lover boy, Nathan Wade, one of the prosecutors working with her on this case. Guys, as a quick side note, remember, Nathan Wade, as we talked about ad nauseum on this channel, had absolutely no experience prosecuting a case like this. I believe we pretty well showed that he has never prosecuted any type of felonious case. I don't believe any felonious case, much less a case of this type of magnitude. It just, the evidence is very clear. He was very incompetent in court. We talked about the fact that he did not even know the difference in a grand jury and a special grand jury. And the judge went through great pains not to embarrass him on national television because that fact was just screaming obvious to someone like myself. And it is what it is. And what it is and what it was is nothing more than two things: a way for her to attempt to take Donald Trump out of the running for president 2024. That did not work out so well. And the second thing, in my humble opinion, was just a scheme to enrich themselves. Depending on the published report or reports that we believe, it's very clear that the taxpayers of Fulton County enriched FANI Willis and Nathan Wade to the tune of at least $1 million. I should say, for clarity, between $750,000 and $1 million. Absolutely insane, especially for an individual like Nathan Wade that clearly was incompetent, had no serious understanding of what RICO cases are, what they involved, and frankly, how to prosecute the case. Listen, this guy was a complete novice. His inability to conduct a professional trial and handle this is just stark. And it's just really amazing that these people had the hubris to think they could get away with this. And the odd thing is, they still think they can get away with this. It's so clear to me that these individuals have committed at a minimum perjury many times over. Remember, they said that their relationship never started before November 2021, yet they had witnesses that were produced that clearly showed they had been lovers for a long time before that, approximately around 2019. Additionally, they both stated on the stand that their relationship ended, I believe it was like the summer last year. So let's just say August 2023. But we know that that's not the case. We looked at a video not long ago in which I believe it was FANI Willis's daughter was pulled over in Fayetteville, which is just south of the Fulton County area. And she is a pregnant young lady. She's pulled over by the police. And guess who shows up to talk to the police officer and check on her daughter? None other than FANI Willis. But that's not the end of it. That's not the end of it all. The main thing here, the shocking thing, of course, I'm not shocked by it, was that her lover boy, Nathan Wade, was in tow. Isn't that nuts? She brought him with her. They were together in the car for this stop that just happened. And of course, like parents will do, they showed up to check on their kid, check on their daughter, and Nathan Wade was with her. Yet they just testified that they had broken up the previous year. Again, not very smart, in my opinion, especially if you're worried about some type of perjury claim, some type of perjury situation. And with the fact that Donald Trump is returning to the White House, he's going to have a very aggressive individual at the head of the DOJ, Department of Justice, even if it's not Matt Gaetz, which I believe it will be sooner or later. you can be assured Donald Trump is going to put a stop to this lawfare, and he's going to have somebody in that department that's going to investigate the you know what out of this particular case. And I think he should, because this lawfare, ladies and gentlemen, is a travesty. It's a shame. It's a blight on the United States. These woke Democrats, they have done nothing except allow the United States to be looked at as nothing more than what we would call a banana republic in the eyes of the world. I mean, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of incompetence to make the United States look that bad in the eyes of the world. We have lost, because of people like FANI Willis, the moral high ground to insist that other people in other countries have fair and free elections, that they act according to some rules, and that they have deference to their political opponents, that they don't go after and target people that don't agree with them. We no longer have that moral high ground, but I'm prayerful that we're going to find a resolution to put a stop to this type of nonsense, because that's exactly what this is and what this has been. It goes on to say, the Epcot Times reached out to one of Trump's attorneys in this case for comment. It's unclear what prompted the appeals court's order. Meanwhile, Trump's other criminal cases seem poised to end after his electoral victory this month. The order follows special counsel Jack Smith's request for the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit to pause his ongoing challenge to a lower court ruling that dismisses his prosecution, I would argue persecution, against Trump in Florida. That's my opinion. These people are all in cahoots together. I think it's going to be found out at some time in the future. We will see what happens. But of course, Jack Smith, lovely Jack Smith, he does not want to be fired by Donald Trump, which is what will happen about a second after Donald Trump returns to the presidency. I believe January 20th, January 22nd. He doesn't want to be fired. So he's obviously, in my opinion, going to resign. That's about his only option to save some type of face, because his efforts via this lawfare to put a stop to Donald Trump, frankly, did not work out. Both his filing to the 11th Circuit and another filing to the D.C. Judge Tanya Chutkan, another woke Democrat appointee, I believe it was President Obama, that put her on the bench. She cited Department of Justice policy. After the election, the special counsel's office declined comment on the cases, but pointed the Epcot Times to long-standing DOJ policy against the prosecution of sitting presidents. A 2000 memo from the DOJ states indictment or criminal prosecution of a sitting president would unconstitutionally undermine the capacity of the executive branch to perform constitutionally assigned functions. And that's kind of putting it mildly. And the last thing we'll review here is Smith is expected to file a follow-up brief for the DC and Florida cases by December 2nd. Ladies and gentlemen, the reality here is you cannot have, see, in the United States, we have 3 co-equal branches of government. You cannot have the judicial branch setting in judgment of the executive branch. And if you had a judge that was going to pronounce sentence on Donald Trump or anybody in that particular, or anything to do with the judicial branch of government, simply cannot exercise any type of negative implication, prison, fines, you name it, they can't do it to a sitting president. And I would argue to a president-elect. The Constitution is very clear that we have 3 separate, distinct branches of government, and one is not over the other. Now, what they're going to end up doing is they're going to try to just pause these cases, especially in the one in New York City that we're going to talk about here in just a minute, but it's not going to work. I have very clear theories and ideas as to exactly what's going to happen. But as far as this FANI Willis case goes, I have pronounced the death sentence on this case many times. Matter of fact, this case is a walking zombie. It's been that way ever since Scott McAfee said that they had to get off the case, or that at least Nathan Wade had to get off the case. As soon as it was appealed, I knew that this case was over. And if you remember, I've been with the channel for a while, you know that we have talked about that extensively. You simply cannot have a judge, especially somebody like Tanya Chunkin, setting judgment of a soon-to-be or actually setting president of the United States. And don't read too much into the GOJ saying, oh, we have policies against prosecuting a president or a setting president. They have not been honoring their policies recently. They have another policy that they will not effectively prosecute or go forward or take action on any case whatsoever when it is 60 days, approximately 60 days before an election. And of course, Jack Smith, he has no moral compass. He has no morals, in my opinion. He didn't give 2 cents to the 60-day rule. He has been hammering Donald Trump every single time he can. Thank God for the judge here in Florida, in South Florida, that threw out the original document case. That was considered to be the main case against Donald Trump. And of course, he was successful in convincing that judge to throw that case out. And frankly, I hope one day we see her as a potential nominee to the United States Supreme Court. But we will see how this works out. And again, thank goodness, thank God that Donald Trump is President Donald Trump elect. All of these things that have been aggravating us, my friends, for a very long time, I don't want to think of it as retribution, but justice is coming. Justice is coming in the shape of President-elect Donald Trump. We have pardons coming for these J6 hostages. It's going to happen. They're going to be pardoned. That should make each and every one of us feel good. Donald Trump is not going to sit by and allow these other cases against him, this lawfare, to continue. There's a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation online about what he can and cannot do and what he will do. Everybody knows something's coming down the pipeline. I think that's the bottom line. We all know Donald Trump is aggressive. He's not going to sit back and take it up to you know what. It's not going to happen like that. He's going to right these wrongs. And I think he's going to do it in a way to ensure that this cannot happen to another American president or former American president. Ladies and gentlemen, I can have a disagreement with someone like Joe Biden, with the woke Democrats, whatever. We can agree to disagree, but I cannot tolerate a situation that's been going on for the last 3 years. Donald Trump, if he committed a crime, they would have went after him 4 years ago, right after January 6th. Instead, they waited until he was an announced, declared candidate for the Republican nomination. And that is an abomination. That is anti-American, anti-constitutional. We have also discussed there's possibly 2,300 people in our country, aka solicitors, prosecutors, DAs, that have the ability to bring charges and ruin someone's life by bringing those charges. Remember Kamala Harris saying, all I got to do is wave my pen and I can go after and I can hammer these people for truancy. Remember we talked about that video? Well, that's the way a lot of these people feel. They don't give any thought to the people they're running over as a result of doing what they're doing. And it's shameful. We have always relied till now on the good judgment of these prosecutors, what we have referred to as prosecutorial discretion. And that is a thing of the past. We need to do something like Israel has. The United States is the only developed country in the world that allows just any of these 2,300 people to say, hey, today I'm messing up your life. And they can just file the charges with a couple wave of their pen, and then you are in deep, deep trouble. We need to do something like Israel, some of these other countries have, and that is effectively an appointed position that is for life. So they're trying to take politics out of it. And effectively, a DA, solicitor, prosecutor, they have to go to this other branch, this other person, whatever the title is that we come up with, and they have to get permission. Say, hey, here is what we see. Here's the crime we think they've committed. Here's why we believe they committed that crime, and we need you to sign off on this. The idea here is this type of prosecutions, not persecutions, could be stopped. And I seriously, sincerely believe that the foundation of our country depends on that. And folks, I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. I am trying to be straight up with you. And I also try not to exaggerate But this is the kind of stuff that could kill a country. Every country in history has a rise and a fall. Look at the great Roman Empire. My opinion is one of the reasons they fell was because of corruption. And this behavior that we've been talking about today, this is corrupt. This is corruption. It's called lawfare. I call it corruption. And it literally can bring down a great country like we have here in the United States. I don't claim to have all the answers. It's like my mother told me a long time ago. She goes, one of the unique things you have is you know what's right and you know what's wrong. She's right. It doesn't take a science degree or a rocket man degree, whatever type of sophisticated PhD you can think of. When we look at it, we know right, we know wrong. And this has been wrong, ladies and gentlemen, and it should never be allowed to continue. That's my sincere hope. Let's check the comments real quick. Zach, good to have you in the chat as always, my friend. Always appreciate you being here. See how whites and others pronounce Gates, and Getz. Yeah, I call it Matt Gates. Is that how y'all pronounce his name? 3 branches, yet Trump is going to be a dictator on day one. That's right. According to the woke Democrats, we no longer have 3 branches of government. We're going to have a dictator very soon. Well said, Zach. I agree with you 100%. So, my friends, let's look at one other thing pertaining to Fani Willis. Then we're going to talk about the interesting developments that's been going on today. A lot of news today, a lot of nonsense going on out there, and we're going to talk about it right here, right now. But I want to finish up with sweet Fani Willis and some of the nonsense going on with her. But I don't want you to just take my commentary on it. One of the channels that I like to watch is what they have another name for their organization, but one of the main guys that runs this is Jay Sekulow, and I like a lot of the commentary and thoughts they have on certain things. So let's take a quick peek at this video and we can talk about it on the other side here, and let's see what he has to say. I'm just going to cut down to the main portion where he's making the commentary as to what exactly this means, this decision by the Georgia Court of Appeals to magically erase the hearing that was set for December 5th coming up to decide as to whether or not Fani Willis can continue on the case. So let's listen to this and we'll discuss it further.
We'll start again with Georgia. So if you're just joining us, there was a case coming up for, I guess this was coming up when it was scheduled today. When was the next hearing was going to be on December 5th.
Right.
And this was going to be the next hearing on whether Fani Willis at the Georgia Appeals Court has to recuse herself or should remove herself from the case involving President Trump after the issue with Nathan Wade and the almost $1 million paid to him to be a RICO specialist, even though he'd never done a RICO case. And this is not even the appeal on the actual charges she brought. So this case has gotten really delayed. And the question now, Harry, I think people are probably asking is this delayed because the entire case falls like some of what you saw with Jack Smith and others, that these cases fall because they used evidence and witnesses and testimony that the Supreme Court then said should not be allowed and cannot be allowed in court?
I think that is the answer. So I would argue that the Supreme Court has ruled very definitively that when presidents engage in official acts, that conduct is arguably immune from basically scrutiny by the prosecutor. Also, when presidents engage in unofficial acts, but within the purview of their constitutional power, there is a presumption that those acts are also immune. And so if we look at the Fani Willis case in Georgia, I think it is clear beyond question that the prosecution essentially relied on official conduct by President Trump. So arguably, that case should be voided. But we have the additional complication, of course, of Fani Willis's relationship with Nathan Wade. And as you correctly point out, Mr. Wade received approximately $1 million, and there is evidence in the record suggesting that FANI Willis benefited from those monies. They went on trips together, they went out for dinner together, and of course, Mr. Wade paid at least for some of those expenses. So I suspect the Georgia Court of Appeals has read the tea leaves. They recognize this case is really going nowhere. And what they may wind up doing is remanding the case to the district court,
Bingo.
Judge McAfee, so that he can dispose of this particular case.
That's exactly it, my friends. That this individual right here, this professor, whatever his title is, that's exactly the way that I have seen this entire thing being eliminated pertaining to the FANI Willis case, and particularly because just like he said, well, he actually didn't say this part. The reality is the election's over. Scott McAfee, the judge, was reelected. So that's good news for the judge. He doesn't have to worry about, at least immediately, worry about reelection. He's got another, I think it's a 4-year tenure as far as the judges there in Fulton County. And like he said, what's probably going to end up happening, because this is kind of something we have to read, it's kind of cryptic, it's unusual for the Georgia Court of Appeals to simply say, hey, we're taking it off oral argument, and that's it. So we kind of have to, like he said, read the tea leaves as to what's going to happen. More than likely, it's going to be what they call remanded, which is a fancy way to say they're going to send it back to Judge McAfee. And hopefully now that the election is over, he'll be able to breathe a little bit and he'll grow a spine and do what we know he's going to have to do. And that is simply make this case go away. He's going to have to throw it out. And the proper term for that is they throw it out with prejudice. In other words, it cannot be refiled. This case is an example of trash in, trash out. And this case, in my opinion, is brought by trash, aka FANI Willis. He makes mention that Nathan Wade and FANI Willis, that there is evidence to show that FANI Willis benefited from this particular prosecution. Are you kidding me? Of course there's evidence. You talk about putting it in a nice way. We have examined it here. It's been examined thoroughly by the trial judge, Judge Scott McAfee. FANI Willis and Nathan Wade took trips together. They went on cruises together. I believe they went to Belize. They took trips here in the United States, to Tennessee. I believe it was Texas. They went all over. They were having a great time on at least $1 million that we know of so far, that they basically pocketed from the taxpayers there in the state of Georgia. It's outrageous what has happened and what they are apparently still getting away with. This makes our criminal justice system look like a joke, look like a mockery. It is a high standard to have what we call the public's trust. And FANI Willis, Nathan Wade, and all her enablers have violated. They have violated this trust. It's been a while since I've been this passionate over a particular subject. And really, it has nothing to do with President-elect Donald Trump. At this point, when they did it, I knew it was wrong. Because when you start messing with the American justice system and the fact that it has to be blind, it has to be equal, you have to have the fair administration of the law. This is the kind of thing, as I said, that destroys a country from within. And ladies and gentlemen, Fulton County has always been a corrupt county. Remember, we talked about this. JFK himself, John F. Kennedy Jr., when he was president of the United States, if it wasn't for him, there would never have been a MLK, a Martin Luther King Jr. The reason for that is they imprisoned him in Fulton County. And in Fulton County back then, especially when they imprisoned you, they lost the room. You were just simply never heard from again. It took a phone call from then President John F. Kennedy to the members that were operating Fulton County government at that particular time and said, hey, let that boy go. And that's exactly what they did. Otherwise, there would never have been an MLK. There's many examples like that that I could cite and go into and discuss. And don't take my word for it. You know, on this channel, I'm all about ending indoctrination. I say all the time, don't take my word for it. go ahead and check it out yourself. Google it. We have this great resource in 2024. We have all these AI technologies. We have Google. We have all these different search engines. You can simply look up in the Atlanta Constitutional Journal. I believe it was 2020. Just do a little Google search on it. Fulton County issued a public apology to the MLK family for their malfeasance back in the 1960s. So what I'm telling you is gospel truth. It's just the way it is. Let me make sure that I'm caught up on the comments as I'm transitioning right here, because we're going to take a look at another case of Donald Trump. Again, Jude, thanks for being here. Zach, always appreciate having you. Oh, my friend Kim is here. Kim from Buffalo, New York. Thank you for letting us know you're here, Kim, and thank you for joining us today. It's always a pleasure to have my friends with me. Zach, my point was that pronunciations of names vary and do not mean that whites can't correctly pronounce black names. Yeah, listen, I'm the world's worst at pronouncing anything. You guys know that. I do the best that I can produce it or say it the best way I can say it. And I wasn't necessarily trying to be mean with my comment earlier. I'm just saying I'm tired of being politically correct, folks. Matter of fact, I don't know that I ever have been politically correct. If her name is spelled F-A-N-I, to me, that's Fanny. She can say it's Fanny or whatever. I don't care. She's Fanny, and that's just the way I'm going to pronounce it. If I misunderstood the comment, I want to apologize. It was not my intention to misinterpret anything. I'm just explaining why I say what I say at times, because when I see F-A-N-I, it's Fanny. But I am not necessarily meaning disrespect. Well, when it comes to Fani Willis, I am meaning disrespect. When I think of her, I think of a Fanny. She's a big Fanny. And we'll just let it go at that. I want to keep my blood pressure under a certain level right now. So thanks for sharing that information, Zach. All right. And everybody's saying hello and saying hey. And of course, Zach, you are in Southwest Pennsylvania. Thank you to your friends and all the good people of Pennsylvania for making sure Donald Trump won the state of Pennsylvania, as we have been discussing during this election time. Very important that the state of Pennsylvania went in the direction of Donald Trump. Donald Trump could lose Pennsylvania, but he would have to have a more rough way of winning the Electoral College. And as we have talked about, Kamala Harris had no choice. Had she not picked up all the so-called blue wall states, she would not have been able to win. And of course she lost, but she had to win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, the so-called blue wall states. And thank God she did not. American Nana, thank you for being here today. Always a pleasure to have you here. And I know you're interested in the Ukraine situation. We're going to be talking about that. I have a few comments to make concerning the developments in Ukraine. And I have a couple other videos that we can hopefully shed a little more light on that will help us understand what's going on in that area of the world. And I'll give you my take on the comments from Putin, and we'll see how that all transpires. So again, I appreciate all my friends, all my regulars being here. Pleasure to have each and every one of you here. Okay, let's talk about what's been going on today. A day filled with a lot of news. We have to switch over and let's take a look at this particular article. Y'all know my friend over in New York, Mr. Alvin Bragg. We could have a lot of fun with that name, but there's nothing to brag about with what he has done, with what he stands for. If you have not heard what the new developments are today, you can see the article here says pressing pause, and this is on Sean Hannity's website. If you haven't checked out his site, you ought to do so. He's got some good articles on there. He takes time, and he has his staff help him apparently, and he puts out some well put together, thought out opinions, and I like to occasionally read through them. Of course, we all know Sean Hannity from Fox News. Love Sean Hannity. But we have a decision today from Judge Merchant, who's overseeing this so-called hush money trial, and they have essentially hit the pause button on this, and I want to talk about it in just 1 second as to exactly what this means. But ladies and gentlemen, make no mistake about it, this here this here's an abomination again. What this is going to effectively mean, and we're going to look a little bit more deeper into this, they have decided they're going to hold this over Donald Trump's head until he's not president of the United States again, or not president-elect of the United States. They know what we just got done talking about. There's no chance, zero chance of doing anything against the sitting president. And I want to be really clear about something. You hear all these dorks on TV talking about how Donald Trump, President Donald Trump elect, is a convicted felon, and it's amazing we elected a convicted felon. Well, I have studied New York law. You are not technically a convicted felon unless and until the judge in New York State sentences you. So Donald Trump is not a convicted felon as of today. And anybody that says he's a convicted felon, in my humble opinion, is committing libel or slander, which today is essentially the same thing. It's a libel to say that Donald Trump is a convicted felon. It's false. Donald Trump has turned around and sued. I believe he sued. I know he's already suing ABC and George Sniffleupagus for saying that he was we'll just say a grape victim, or that he was a graper, GRAPE. You know what I'm talking about. I have to use careful words because of YouTube and their policies. He made that comment on air on a particular Sunday, and Donald Trump responded with a lawsuit. We'll see where that goes. And recently, he has targeted many of the so-called legacy media. I'll get a copy of that suit, and we'll go over it on another program. But even if he's not successful, at least it's a shot over the bow, so to speak, for these news agencies. And the bottom line with the suits that he's been going forward with is there are rules, there are laws in the U.S. government, specifically as put out by what we call the FCC, the Federal Communication Commission. They have to give what's called equal time. If you have a Democratic candidate, they have to have the same time as the Republican candidate, and vice versa. But it is so clear that President Donald Trump elect was not afforded the same time as Kamala Harris was. All of the news coverage was almost 100% negative pertaining to Donald Trump. It really amazes me, and I'm sure it does you, that Donald Trump was even able to do as good as he did in the election with almost nonstop, constant negative coverage. Even Fox News, and a little bit less is Newsmax. Some of the coverage that I personally seen, it just didn't have that normal go that you normally see on Fox News or Newsmax, for that particular matter. The coverage was wrong. It was tainted. It was one-sided. It was biased. It was a violation of the law. It was inappropriate. And yet Donald Trump did what he did in this last historic victory. And for a Republican candidate to actually carry the popular vote, that is, I don't want to say it's unprecedented, but in modern politics, modern American politics, it is one heck of an accomplishment. I'll just let it go at that, but that is exactly what happened, and that's the reality. I'm surprised that he did as good as he did when you consider that Kamala Harris had $1 billion. She had every person in Hollywood, the so-called Hollywood, coming out and say, hey, I want you to vote for Kamala Harris. And I believe we have some videos on this. We're going to take a look at it in just a second. Kamala Harris was paying these people for their endorsement. At least that's exactly what it looks like. Oprah Winfrey received $1 million when she was asked about it. I believe it was TMC that was out there. She was like, oh, no, I didn't receive $1 million. That's not correct. And what it turns out is her production company, I believe it's called Oprah Productions or something to that effect. It's the same thing as she being paid, but technically it's paid to her company. She's just trying to split the hairs, ladies and gentlemen, as we would say. And again, there may be some criminal liability here, in my humble opinion, because when you support a particular candidate, especially when you're paid for that endorsement, you have to disclose that in the filings. Donald Trump, in this case we're talking about with Alvin Bragg, They're trying to put him in jail for alleged violations of the federal elections law. So what's good for the goose is good for the gander. You know what I'm saying? This is just wrong. You know that one concert that was in Atlanta, was that Missy Elliott? Or I'm not familiar with all the rap groups, but that one young lady that was there, she was paid an obscene amount of money. I believe Eminem got $1.5 million. I'll have to pull the facts to see exactly what it was. But this woman, aka Kamala Harris, blew through $1 billion, not a million, $1 billion, and they are still in debt, according to many published reports. It's just, it almost seems unreal, surreal, tragic that this is exactly what happened, and that a woman like Kamala Harris and the Marxist views that she has, I mean, if she's not a Marxist, she's definitely a socialist, but that her views, along with the full weight and support of the entire mainstream legacy press, got her that close to being the next president of the United States. That is scary. Again, thank God that he was able to pull it out. And Zach, you're right. Thank you for the clarification. You guys are always so good and keep me on my toes. I appreciate that. And the older I get, trust me, I need to be kept on my toes. But it is Harpo Productions, whatever they call it. Thanks again, my friend. All right, let's go ahead and take a look, as according to Sean Hannity, this nonsense that happened in New York. The setup here is we're talking about these dead misdemeanors that were brought to life, and they were dead because the statute of limitations, which is how much time can go by before something dies. In other words, when you're facing certain criminal crimes, the prosecution has to prosecute within a certain amount of times. Otherwise, you cannot be held liable, responsible, criminally responsible for certain alleged misdeeds. Well, in this particular case, Alvin Bragg decided he was going to take federal election law. So make sure you understand that, ladies and gentlemen. You have federal election law that is being prosecuted, being used by a local sitting district attorney for the city of New York. This is a state individual using federal law, specifically law involving campaigning, to try to put someone in jail. I don't know if it's unprecedented as far as using federal law, but it's very unusual, and it's definitely unprecedented in this lawfare state that we got going on. But let's take a quick dive into this. Pressing pause. DA Bragg's office says Trump's hush money conviction should be paused, according to the report. According to the New York Post, and by the way, that's a picture of a very honorable man, Alvin Bragg, the sitting district attorney for the city of New York. According to the New York Post report, New York City's district attorney Alvin Bragg's office says that President-elect Donald Trump's hush money case should be paused in light of his recent election win. And again, the reason he's doing this is to have it over Donald Trump's head. But I'm going to tell you in a minute how that might not work the way they plan on it working. It says, as a result of the election held on November 5th, 2024, defendant's inauguration as president will occur on January 20th, 2025. Woohoo! Says District Attorney Alvin Bragg wrote to Merchant on Tuesday. And he's quoting from the papers and whatnot, but he goes on to say, given the need to balance competing constitutional interests, consideration must be given to various non-dismissal options that may address any concern raised by the pendency of a post-trial criminal proceeding under the presidency, such as deferral of all remaining criminal proceedings until the end of the defendant's upcoming presidential term, Bragg wrote. Now, let me translate that for you. He's saying, he's going to be president. I can't hammer his butt anymore. So let me hammer him after he's no longer the president. That's the J.R. Dukes translation there for you. All right. Trump spokesperson Stephen Hong told Fox News Digital that this is a total and definite victory for President Trump and the American people who elected him in a landslide. The Manhattan DA has conceded that this witch hunt cannot continue. Chung, who was tapped to serve as White House communication director, said the lawless case, this lawless case, is now stayed. And stayed means stopped, halted. The pause button has been hit. And President Trump's legal team is moving to get its dismissed once and for all. And you can see some posts here, this developing story. This is by the New York Post on their X feed. It says Donald Trump's hush money conviction should be paused in light of the election. My opinion is forget the pause. It should be dismissed, what we call a dismissal with prejudice. It cannot be refiled. So that is where we're at right now pertaining to this particular case. And we'll have to see exactly what is going to happen going here forward. Now, I promised you that I would give you my opinion as to exactly what is next in this particular matter, and I'm going to see if I can't do that. So, what I think is going to happen is the following. I think, especially once Donald Trump gets eventually a DOJ nominee in place, what's going to happen is you're going to have the case stayed, like we just talked about. They're just going to kind of hang it over the head of then President Donald Trump. There is many tools, despite what the talking heads tell you on TV. There is a way for them to file to get this moved into a federal court of some way. There is so many USC codes. We're talking the federal codes anointed is what we call it. And all they have to do is get it into a federal court. There is a numerous amount of laws that they can say has been broken, that this case was illegal from the start. I think the clearest thing they're going to do and the quickest way they're going to work on this is they're going to say to a federal judge, that, listen, this case was illegal from the start because Alvin Bragg used testimony that was clearly confidential, as the Supreme Court decision said. And it's not so much that it was even confidential. He cannot be held responsible for anything he does in his official capacity as president of the United States. That's the end of it. And that's how they're going to get it into the federal court system. And no matter what happens at the lower level in the federal court system, it doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen, because they will then appeal it to the U.S. Supreme Court, which is run by let's just say the conservatives as of right now. And they predict that the majority of the conservatives in the court is only going to get stronger. You remember, what is that, Justice Sotomayor, the one they were pressuring to resign now so President Biden could try to appoint a liberal in her place? Well, I think she's 70 years old right now, and she has bad diabetes. And although I disagree with her in just about anything and everything she has ever ruled on, I don't wish anything bad for her. I hate to see anybody sick and suffering with this type of disease or any disease. But the reality is 70 years old and she is not in good health. Over the next 4 years, there is a very strong chance that Donald Trump, either with her seat or another seat, is maybe going to have one or two more opportunities to appoint another conservative to the bench, which I think would be fantastic. There's also rumors that, who is that? Clarence Thomas. He was appointed at that time. Was it Ronald Reagan? Why am I drawing a blank on this? Ronald Reagan, or it was George H.W. Bush that appointed, I believe it was Ronald Reagan. Someone can help me out in the chat if you know. I believe it was Ronald Reagan that appointed him. If not, it was one of the other Republican presidents. And he had that very contentious, that's why I think it was George W. Bush, George H.W., because it was in the 90s. He finally got through Congress, and that was headed by Joe Biden in that Senate committee. Remember that? Then Senator Joe Biden. But he's an older man right now, and he's a conservative, obviously. And the idea is a lot of the Supreme Court justices, to save their legacy, they generally try to wait, folks, until there's a way for their seat to be replaced with someone that has the same type of politics. I think that's a fair way to look at it. And again, this gives many people the opportunity to cement their legacy, to leave with dignity, if you will. And so that's one of the reasons I think that it's going to be very consequential for the United States Supreme Court. But specifically, Donald Trump's going to find a way to make this go away. He's got pardoning powers. Now, there are some talking heads that say, oh, the president cannot pardon himself. That's unconscionable. Well, the reality is we really don't know because it's never been ruled on definitively by the United States Supreme Court. What I will tell you is the president is not above the law. We all hear that, right? Well, if he's not above the law, why is he below the law? And what I mean by that is if a president in his capacity as president of the United States, if he can pardon somebody, why can't he pardon himself? At least that's part of the logic that I would use if I was going to argue this case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. And one final point on that, they should have known, and they is these prosecutors, and they probably did know, they just don't care. It has been standing precedent for a long time via the Supreme Court. I believe it was a case involving Richard Nixon and some civil suit he was in. I think it was in the 1980s, like 80, 81. But at any rate, it was very clear from the Supreme Court back then that a president was immune from civil liability, and civil means basically money in this particular context, from civil damages, civil liability for any and all acts as part of his official duties as president of the United States. And you heard the one commentator a minute ago say it's not just his official acts, it's also things that's kind of in the outer periphery of it, if you will. And that's exactly correct. There is a presumption of immunity. Just like our police officers have what we call qualified immunity, a president at least has something even higher than that, which is called this assumed or presumptive immunity. And then, of course, the Supreme Court came back and definitively said that he has absolute immunity for actions involved anything he does or takes on behalf of the United States in his capacity as president of the United States. And I know that's a lot of words I'm twisting there, but the reality is they should have known if it fits for civil, it's generally the rule that they're going to rule that it fits for criminal. And that was the reason I was so clearly able to predict the outcome of the Supreme Court's ruling that was handed down pertaining to this decision on the presidency of the United States. As Neil Gorsuch has said from the stand, we are writing a rule for the ages. The woke Democrats would want you to think this is the end-all be-all case for everything. If they didn't decide right, it was the end of our democracy. Just a bunch of nonsense. But thankfully, the majority of the Supreme Court judges saw right through this nonsense, and they saw this for what it was, and that truly it's much bigger than even Donald Trump. It's something for the ages, and our presidents have to be protected for decisions they make or take on in their capacity for as president of the United States. Right? I think that's pretty straight up, pretty easy to understand. And I'll get to the comments here in just a second. Let's go ahead and actually let me take a quick peek at these, and we're going to dive into some of these news tips that the top news stories of today. All right, let me make sure everybody's been said hello to. Hello again to Zach. Alrighty, and American Nana. I like Fanny. It's very, yeah, I think so too, American Nana. So when I think of her, I just think of a Fanny. You know, we'll just let it go at that, right? Zach's the same way. Harpo, thank you, Zach, for that clarification. When my brain freezes up, as it often does, I appreciate the fact that my friends, my family, is out there able to help steer me back to the right side here. Zach, the people who donated $10 or whatever could spare should be furious. Yeah, that's a good point too. All these people that contributed to this $1 billion that the Harris administration apparently just blew through and squandered, and they made wealthy. Isn't it funny how the Democrats are always whining that, oh, Donald Trump, they're just for the wealthy people. It's tax cuts for their wealthy friends and wealthy buddies. Yet you had all of these, let's just say working class people that were scratching up $5, $10, $15, $20 to send it into Harris. They bought into that lie. They bought into that nonsense. But the point is they sent their money in and they gave it to people like Oprah. Do you think Oprah needs any more money? And if she does, that's her business. It sure is not going to come from me. I can promise you that. Imagine next time around when they go to their Democratic base and they say, hey, can you send us some money? I mean, I don't know. People are going to remember these stories. There's got to be some accountability, ladies and gentlemen. This is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. What's more disturbing, according to Zach, is that no one stopped or tried to stop the prosecution before it started. Yes, absolutely. It's very disturbing. That's the reason why it has to be, and I hate to use a Kamala Harris word, but reimagined. It really does. It needs to be rethought out the way our policing works and the way that our court systems works. And as I said, I want to make sure I say this for the new folks that's in our chat today. I definitely support our men and women in blue. No question about it. Having said that, there are a lot of issues with the policing in our country and with how laws and how policing is affected in our community. And we don't have time to get into that today. But we need to support our police officers, no question about that. But we need to be careful about how it's done. And obviously, as shown with FANI Willis and this Bragg guy, and even Jack Smith with this nutty, crazy special counsel BS that they allow these people to take the football, so to speak, and run with it. This here really is a black eye for the American justice system, that people that we entrust with the very foundations of how our society is supposed to work, that these people made the decisions they made and made our country look like a third world banana republic. And that, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, is unforgivable. And it has to be evaluated. We have to affect change. We have to demand change. The good news is, here's the good news. Thank God Donald Trump is on his way back to the presidency. I am confident in telling you he's got a lot of surprises. If Kamala Harris was right about one thing, Donald Trump does have an enemies list. I promise you. And he is not going to let it go. I wouldn't let it go. You wouldn't let it go. I know that. All them times they had him sitting in that freezing courtroom there in New York City, and the judge Merchant required him to show up every day. You think he was sitting there thinking, oh, this is so nice. This feels so good. Oh, our justice system is obviously operating fantastic. It's really neat to see how everybody interacts with everybody. No, he wasn't doing that. He was sitting there broiling and boiling and thinking of how he is going to make this right. And I wouldn't even judge it or label it as retribution, although it feels good to say that and to think about that. He knows it's got to be changed. If it happened to him, it can happen to any of us. It's just that simple. It's like Melania Trump being upset, not going to meet with Dr. Jill Biden at the White House. I wouldn't go meet with her either. She had the FBI come into their private home in Mar-a-Lago and went through her underwear drawer. That would make anybody upset. Nobody wants to be violated like that. And yes, I know there's a few jokes in there, but I don't want to get distracted. It's outrageous what happened to these people. They are servants of the country. They are patriots of our great country. And they had this terrible thing called lawfare brought down on them. It's just outrageous. American Nana, thank you for commenting. As always, some of these people look so weird. Yes, they do, Zach. Absolutely. Yeah, I like Epcot times 2, American Nana. Good point. And that is what, Roman? The News with Roman or something like that. I like the way they put stuff on that. If y'all get a chance, I would check out their channel. They have a good channel over there. I like it. I use a variety of sources too, my friend. JR, you got a boo-boo. What happened? I don't know what boo-boo you're talking about, but I'm sure there's something wrong with my face today. I appreciate you guys. Or it's a Band-Aid or the background. It could be. I got all kinds of problems, so we'll just move on. But thank you, American Nana, in all sincerity. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your comments. I love a lively chat. I like the Next News Network, too. I do, American Nana. That's a good point here on YouTube. And I like Right Side Broadcasting. I think they're the ones that follow President-elect and President Donald Trump all over the place. Love them for that. They have a great network over there, too. And I do like the Next News Network. That guy's pretty cool. Actually, I only found his channel a week or two ago. I stumbled across it. It was pretty cool. American Ant, I'm on a tablet. I have a Fire Stick TV. Yeah, I love the Fire Sticks TVs. You know, it's wonderful, all the blessings we have in our lives today, ladies and gentlemen. It is so great. No matter what's going on in our world, no matter what problems we have, it's such a blessing to have all the electronic devices we have, to have our nice, comfortable homes, apartments, places, just our habitations and abodes. And we're able to have all the blessings and have all this news coming to us and all this entertainment. And then I'm able to go to my computer here in my office and sit down and talk to my new best friends. I mean, it really is amazing. I'm sitting here in Florida, and I know there's people listening in on this conversation right now all over the world. And I know how many people generally watch my videos after the broadcast. And it's just really a blessing. And a lot of times we don't think of all these blessings because we take them for granted. It's a human nature thing. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that's what we all do. When you go through a period when you're without that blessing, then you appreciate what you have. Here in Florida, with all these hurricanes and stuff coming through, when you're doing without power for 3 or 4 days, you really appreciate being brought back to the year 2024, right? So it's definitely like that. Yeah, Zach, that word scares me too. Reimagine, but hey, I generally like to think there's something good in just about anything. And that's about the only comment I ever heard her say that I think is a good adjective or a good, what would it be? Well, in that context, it would be reimagined. That'd be a verb, I guess, right? To reimagine something. Well, whatever. I agree with you, Zach. Thank you for that comment. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about, I want to hit a few of the stories that's been going on today. I think it's important to understand what's happened on a day-to-day basis. And of course, we have to talk about our favorite outgoing president. Did y'all catch that? Our favorite outgoing president, President Joe Biden. He has lost the election. He was forced out of this particular election. I don't want to just keep on hammering this guy per se. You know, I mean, when you lose, you lose. I know this man has a cognitive decline. I feel sorry about that. I don't wish anything bad to our outgoing president, but let's be straight up and honest about it. These people enabled this nonsense that's going on. Kamala Harris, the people that are around Joe Biden. There was one politician that was running for the Democratic nomination against Joe Biden. His name escapes me at this very second, but he warned what we have been talking about for a year. That is something is seriously wrong with President Joe Biden. He's clearly in some type of decline, some type of mental decline. Again, on this program, we talked extensively about the fact there is some clear sign of dementia or whatever you want to call it. We'll just call it decline going on with President Joe Biden. But they kept gaslighting us and telling us that we were imagining all this, that we were making this up, that you can't believe your lying eyes. And it's aggravating in that particular context. It's not correct. It's not right. And it's the reality. That's what these people did to us. And that's what they have done to Joe Biden. I look at Joe Biden as being a victim. It's what we would call, if he was a normal individual, we would say he's a victim of elder abuse. The people around him keep parading him out in public like he has all his cylinders firing. And that is not what's going on. So I don't take any joy, well, maybe a little bit, but I don't take a lot of joy in the fact that our current president looks like an idiot, an incompetent individual, especially on the world stage. It's unfortunate, and it causes, in my opinion, a lot of the problems we have in the world today. If you notice Donald Trump coming into the presidency, people respect him. People know there's a new sheriff in town. Things are going to be different. And that's one of the reasons we have all this movement going on, whether it's Ukraine or wherever. People are getting ready. There's a new boss. There's a new sheriff coming, and this guy means business, and they know it. And, of course, that's a huge contrast to what's going on with our current president right now. So, my friend Matt, thank you for being here, my friend. I'm starting to believe all the conspiracy theories. They seem to be correct. You know, it's interesting how you have certain conspiracy theories. A lot of them are nothing, but every once in a while, there's a good one that comes up. But yes, if you're talking about this nonsense with Joe Biden, we were told a long time ago by everybody around him that Joe Biden is just he's the picture of mental fitness and health. This guy's running circles around us. I wouldn't want to meet him in a boxing ring type of thing. I mean, this is the kind of nonsense they told us. And as I said, that one candidate that had the tenacity to stand up and point out what was obviously going on around us, man, they made this guy out to be public enemy number one. I think his last name was Dean. Was that him? Senator or something, Dean? He was the guy that was trying to say, hey, Joe Biden is not the pick that we need to be going with for 2024. And the Democrats, these woke Democrats, they got mad. They got mad at him, outraged. And they just said, hey, go away. Well, we don't want nothing to do with you. They just basically put the dunce hat on him and said, there you go. And even Kamala Harris was gaslighting us by telling us how well Joe Biden is doing and was doing. You know it's not true. I know it's not true. They should all be ashamed of themselves. And you know what? That's one thing I didn't really see enough of the reporters, aka legacy media, holding Kamala Harris's feet to the fire on. And that is, she kept telling us what great shape Joe Biden's in. And we knew better than that. You remember that Hurd report? Back when they were looking to press charges on Joe Biden for similar things that allegedly Donald Trump committed pertaining to documents. He had allegedly had documents in his convertible, documents laying around the garage. And the Hur report, yeah, it's the Hur report, H-U-R, something like that. The Hur report came out and said, hey, you know what? He's probably broken the law. I'm convinced he's broken the law. Well, we can't prosecute him. This guy is your grandfather that's lost his mind. He presents, that's exactly what the report said. This guy presents as a well-meaning old man, or words of that effect. Just shameful, absolutely shameful what they tried to stick down our throats all this time. Just unreal. Matt, appreciate you being here, my friend. Zach, thank you for the super chat. You're the boss. I appreciate that. Thank you. I always appreciate you guys. You guys are always so generous and helpful to the channel, and I appreciate it. Make no mistake about it. Matt, does anyone else watch the news for pure recreational beliefs and entertainment? It's all fake, however. You know, I could argue too, Matt, this is an interesting point. That's one of the great things about our country. I mean, really, it is. We have choices. We can choose what we want to do. And even our news, we can choose. If you have beliefs one way, you can turn over and watch CNN. And if you have feelings that are more conservative, you can turn over and switch to Fox News. There's no reason to get aggravated anymore when you turn on the news, because you can, you know, it's kind of like the Burger King news network. You can have your news your way, right? The Burger King News Network. I like that. Okay, so that's the way it is in this country. Even me having a discussion with all y'all today, there's a million programs out there, a million people talking. You can get together and just chit-chat, but it's just another fantastic thing that we have in our lives today that is truly an amazing blessing. It's always good to have Zach in the chat, and of course, American Nana. Let's see here. I don't watch it. Yeah, you know what? Sometimes it's not good to watch any news. At a certain point, you need to just relax, or at least on the weekends. That's true. And one of the interesting statistics for me is that in the very near future, I'm talking like in the next 2 to 3 years, they believe the majority of Americans are going to get their news from places like this, like me chatting, or just other individuals on YouTube or any of the other platforms, the X platform. Elon Musk has made many tweets. I don't know what you call it anymore, if it's a tweet or if it's a whatever, but even he has said on numerous posts, maybe it's just a post now, but I'll go ahead with a tweet till I know better. He has tweeted out that, hey, you are the news. And he's exactly right. We all now have the ability to get online, to get on X, to get on YouTube. Well, not so much on YouTube. You got to be careful what you say, but at least on X, Truth Social, some of the platforms like this, we can bring you the news unfiltered. And the Epcot Times, that's a good example of that. So I got you on that. That is one of the disadvantages of American Nana on the news is you get tired of all that one-sided nonsense. I used to love, for example, was that Good Morning America? I used to watch it every morning. And then I got to where I turned it on, especially during the election. And I'm like, man, well, I'm not doing that no more because all it ended up doing is getting me PO'd first thing in the morning. And I didn't want to live my life like that. So I stopped doing it. Just stopped doing it. Matter of fact, when I first wake up, I kind of cut out the news, at least for an hour. Just my personal thing. I'll listen to some Christian music or I'll just watch something on television to do with animals or just something different. Bring my day and start my day slow and easy without having to have all that aggravation and that interference. Bottom line is, if you're doing something and it's not making you happy, if it's bringing a smile on your face, if you are losing your joy, you need to change it. I think that's pretty straightforward and straight up. That's a good comment there, American Dan. I appreciate it. Zach, I didn't know a sticker. I get excited about all kinds of stuff, but that's another conversation. I appreciate you, Zach. Seriously. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Oh, my friend, Matt, you are the bomb. B-O-M-B. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. It's the fact that I appreciate that y'all care. I really do. It is, it's humbling to me. I appreciate that y'all think enough to come back and hear what I have to say and have a conversation with me. These are important things to discuss, and y'all that support the channel, I just don't take it for granted. I think that's about the easiest way to say it. And folks, by the way, if you want to do something for free, make sure you hit that thumbs button. Just hit that thumbs up. It helps the algorithm, helps push this out to everybody out there in the matrix. And the same thing on the X platform. You hit the heart and be sure to subscribe. It definitely helps out the channel and helps push it out. I am more new on the X platform than I am YouTube, but I think on YouTube now we're getting closer to 7,000 subscribers, I think. So I appreciate it, and those numbers and y'all tuning in to chat with me humbles me. And again, thank you, Matt, for your very generous support, my friend. I appreciate it. American Anna, that is intriguing, JR. I am wondering if Trump's lawyers are keeping the liability in their back pocket, sort of speaking. Good point. Zach, there are a lot of squirrel videos. Yeah. You know, it's who was repeating that the other day? One of the somebody was talking about that. I think it was one of the judges or something. If y'all know who it is, you can slap it in the chat for me. But they were making comments about that squirrel nuts video. It is extremely upsetting. It's not so much a squirrel. It's upsetting that these ABC agencies, that our government is becoming so powerful, so strong and unchecked, and that they would come into our private sanctuary, our homes, and that they would do something like that. And they took this squirrel that this guy clearly loved, his wife, I think that's his wife, girlfriend, she clearly loved the squirrel. They enjoyed the little rescue they had going on right there. And because somebody complained, they always say, by the way, I'm following policy. I got to follow policy. Oh my goodness, it's policy. We got to follow policy. Forget common sense. Forget discretion. We have to follow policy. But what do? They come in raiding with guns and all types of lethal devices. I believe they popped in like first thing in the morning, like they do on a drug house. It's just nonsense. We can do better than this in America. We can do better than this. We deserve better than this. They break in because it's illegal to have that squirrel for whatever crazy reason that they said, and they take the squirrel from the owner, which in my opinion, that's a violation of our Constitution. That's definitely a violation of the Bill of Rights. What is that against search and seizure? Is that the Fourth Amendment? You have rights that's in the Constitution. Our founding fathers were so concerned that our government would get to the point that we're experiencing right now. That's how concerned they were. They were so concerned about it, they would not sign off on the Constitution of the United States unless and until they put in the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And today we call those first 10 rights the Bill of Rights. And that's a good name for it. They wanted to make darn sure that we could say what we wanted to say. At least as far as opinion goes. You can't scream fire in a crowded theater. But for the most part, we can say what we want to say. We can express our opinion. That's not what's going on nowadays. You know, I've had videos taken down right here on YouTube. I've had warnings issued. Of course, Elon Musk, he is all about free speech. And that's one of the reasons he makes such an attractive target on the left, the woke left. They want to put a stop to anybody that's not doing or complying with what they say you need to do. And, you know, the Bill of Rights, we have the right to gather, for free speech, to worship as we want. We have protections against unreasonable search and seizures. And they should not have taken this squirrel. And if you hear them say, oh, they had a warrant signed by a judge, we've talked about this before. That's a bunch of nonsense. It doesn't mean nothing. You can get a judge. There's always a judge willing to sign allowing something. It's just the way it works in the United States. And that should also change on top of that. But you have these so-called ABC agencies that are always trying to justify their very existence, especially in a time where you have an incoming president like Donald Trump. He's coming in with Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk, and he's going to trim that fat. He's going to shut down some of these agencies, and they know it. So what do they do in response? They try, and this is what they've always been doing, try to justify their own existence. And unfortunately, what they do oftentimes is something like you see with the squirrel here. They break into this man's house, armed to the teeth. Someone could have died. And I'm not just talking about the squirrel. There could have been loss of innocent human life. There's always that risk when you have these so-called raids or these seizures, but they took this squirrel. They were never afforded the opportunity to appear before a judge and argue for their property back, because unfortunately the squirrel is considered like a piece of property, but they didn't have the opportunity to go to a judge and say, Judge, give me back my squirrel. Give me back this beloved pet of mine. They just simply euthanized the squirrel. Unconscionable in the United States of America. I realize in life nothing's perfect. There's always sad things. There's always risk. We have a great country, but it's like that famous quote. I don't know, Socrates, whoever it was. We have a democracy if we can keep it, and that's the question, ladies and gentlemen. Can we keep it? Are we going to be able to keep our beloved democracy? And this is the type of thing that undermines our very existence. I truly want to make this country a better place. Donald Trump's perfect slogan, make America great again. I want to make this country better than when I came into this country. I want to make it stronger than when I came into this country. I don't want to sound like a Donald Trump political commercial, but it's the truth. I want to make it a better place, and I'm sure you feel the same way. That's why you're here. That's why we're having this conversation. We all want our country to be better, and God bless each and every one of you for having that feeling. But R.I.P. Nuts the squirrel. Very, very unfortunate. And I hope if the squirrel has any relevance, any meaning from here on out, and these people suffered this loss and have went through this pain, have went through this intrusion of their privacy and had this violation of their rights. I'm hoping some kind of change can happen as a result of that, a positive change where this type of thing is not just taken as business as usual, because it should never be accepted, my friends, as business as usual. And Matt, thank you for agreeing with that. And let's see, Zach. Yeah, the fourth. I really appreciate the lively discussion we have back and forth. That's great for all of us. Yeah, Google Plan Cards. You guys go right in and just chat all you want. We're going to talk briefly about that North Korea in just a second. Just attack Ukraine. Well, I think what you may be hearing about North Korea is that there are reports right now that up to 100,000 troops could be going into Russia to fight on behalf of Ukraine. That is an extremely dangerous situation, but I promise we're going to get to it here in just a minute. Okay, fantastic. If you do have any questions, ladies and gentlemen, or if anything that I could clarify, please put it in the chat. And always remember, we do have that link that I posted in the chat. You're welcome to call in with your questions or appeal up here by video for any questions that you may have. Okay, we're going to touch on some of the top news quickly, and then we'll talk a little bit about Ukraine. Our president of the United States, current president Joe Biden, oversees
a record $4 billion.
It's just shocking that they would give him the treatment that they're giving him and that he's allowing it. That his handlers, I mean, clearly Joe Biden is not operating with all cylinders. There's no way Joe Biden is in control of everything that's going on, including this decision to go ahead and allow our weapons to be used actually inside of Russia. But I want to skip around on this. Look at the indignity he's having to suffer. They took a picture and did not wait for him to be in the picture. Forget about the fact they put him in the back of the picture. They didn't even wait for him to show up. What an international insult.
$4 billion.
It's just
now
unbelievable.
make sure the World Bank can continue its work in the most vulnerable countries.
And here he is promising $4 billion to the World Bank. He's trying to make us all believe this climate crap, and it's just sad.
So, guys, when Biden arrived here at the G20 for his first meeting, he took a different route than the other world leaders we observed arriving. It might have been due to a ramp, an incline to enter the building. The White House claims it was for security reasons, but that apparently wasn't a concern for other world leaders, just as China's president or India's 74-year-old leader and Putin's foreign secretary, Sergei Lavrov. There was another incident. This is what you guys were talking about off the top. When it was time for the G20 group photo, Biden was a no-show, along with Canada and Italy's prime ministers. Biden missed the photo. He was seen walking out just after the leaders.
Imagine that. They took this group photo, a class photo, if you will, like they always do. They did not wait for the most powerful man in the world, our president, to appear.
Wait for Biden, guys.
And you could hear the press. The press is in shock, ladies and gentlemen, over this.
Left to the left of the palm tree. Oh my God. But they took it.
Shocking.
And the camera also was looking up in the palm tree for the president at one point. Now, a White House official says, quote, due to logistical issues, they took the photo early before all the world leaders arrived. So we can confirm that President Biden was not on the stage. Again, was that due to the fact that Russia's foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov, was on the stage? Of course, President Putin is not here, but Russia is a member of the G20, or perhaps the event was just a little disorganized. But no question, Biden.
Just absolutely shocking. You would have the president of the United States appear at a world stage event, and that they took a photo without waiting for the president of the United States to appear in the photo. I can only think of the word humiliation. I'm certain there's a more stronger word that would fit, but what an embarrassment on the world stage. And it's unfortunate that he would even allow that to take place, or I should say the handlers that he has to allow that to continue. Just very, very sad, but thank God change, ladies and gentlemen, is on the way. And remember that even in relation to Ukraine, we're going to drill in that in just 1 second before we part company, because I want to make sure I express my views on that and give everybody a little bit of understanding as to exactly what is going on with that. One interesting note that we have to absolutely discuss, you know, our president, our favorite president, President Donald Trump, they have tried to crucify this man pertaining to so-called election issues or election denialism. You know, nowadays the new buzz frame is if you don't agree with the people in power and you try to have a different view or a different thought, they call you a denier. You're an election denier. You're a climate change denier. The inference there is that you're stupid. that you don't understand how the world works, that you're basically just stupid. I don't think there's any other way to say it. You're just dumb. You are unable to learn. And this is what they have called anyone that had questions pertaining to the 2020 election and whether or not there was fraud or other issues with that particular election. Again, with YouTube, I have to be careful what I say. Having said that, you may or may not be aware there's a recount going on in the state of Pennsylvania, and it involves the two senators that are running. You see him right here in front of you. One's Bob Casey, and then his competitor. We'll hear the name here in a second. But Bob Casey's been there for maybe 30 years. I believe there's about 20,000 votes that are currently separating. And the law there mandates that if it's within 0.5%, they have to have a recount. Well, here's the shocking thing. You have in these Democratic strongholds, like the main urban areas, you have them coming right out and announcing and admitting that they're not going to follow the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruling. And this ruling, by the way, took place weeks before the actual election, stating that on all the ballots that they receive in, like these ballots you can send in, like if you're going to be out of town, absentee type of ballots. Common sense again, but common sense is not so common anymore. And what they did is they said, listen, it's got to have the proper date. It's got to have the proper signature. It's got to have the basic decorum of what the courts have said is a ballot to be counted. You have these officials and these Democratic strongholds saying, forget what the Supreme Court of the state of Pennsylvania said. We're going to count them anyways. They're trying to steal it. They're trying to steal the election. If this was Donald Trump or anyone else related to Donald Trump or a Republican, they would be out marching, crucify, crucify. And it's clear there's a double standard when it is the Democrats in power. Let's listen to this for a minute. This is shocking. And this is going on right now.
Today in the Pennsylvania Senate race is still not settled. GOP challenger Dave McCormick ahead of incumbent Democrat Bob Casey by less than 0.5%, triggering an automatic recount under state law. A court battle erupting over mail-in ballots. Weeks before the election, the state Supreme Court ruled mail-in ballots with a missing or incorrect date could not be counted. Election officials in at least 4 counties, Bucks, Philadelphia Center, and Montgomery, openly defying that ruling. In Bucks County, the Democrat-led Election Commission Board voted to count 405 ballots with date errors.
Precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in this country, and people violate laws anytime they want. So for me, if I violate this law, it's because I want a court to pay attention.
What? Kaboom. Did you guys just hear that? These are Democrats in these Democratic urban type areas. And this woman right here, one of these council ladies, whatever her name is, she's like, I know that I'm violating the law. I don't have to listen to what the Supreme Court, the state of Pennsylvania tells me. I'm just going to do it anyways. I want a court to look at this. This is outrageous. If this was a Republican, if this was Donald Trump, there would be an automatic, some type of crime would be brought, some kind of charge. This is just insanity. They're going to openly disobey the law of their own state. And here's one other little point you probably won't hear in the news. The Supreme Court of the state of Pennsylvania is made up of Democrats. I believe they're all Democrats, or the overwhelming vast majority are Democrats. Can you imagine that? And the Democratic Supreme Court, state of Pennsylvania, has issued the order. And I believe they handed down a ruling a little bit later today. It's more of a breaking news type thing. They have instructed these people to obey the law they've already set. But this is the nonsense that these Democrats, these woke Democrats, are trying to push down our throats, and we can't allow it to happen. I hope these people are prosecuted. They need to use the same judgment, the same mechanisms they used against the Republicans. They need to have a steady hand, an even hand against
there is nothing more important than counting votes.
The blatant flouting of the law sparking outrage. The liberal Washington Post editorial board saying Democrats are thumbing their nose at the rule of law, calling it, quote, corrosive to democracy.
It's not thumbing their nose at the rule of law. It's shooting the bird at the law.
Conservative commentator Jonathan Turley writing in an op-ed that Democrats are dropping any pretense of protecting democracy over partisanship.
Essentially, this is election denialism of the kind that Democrats have been attacking Donald Trump for doing in the past.
Dave
Amen.
McCormick's campaign now suing the county, demanding it obey
Yeah,
the
Dave
state Supreme
McCormick,
Court
that's his name.
ruling. Pennsylvania's other senator, Democrat John Fetterman, downplaying the Democratic counties flouting the courts.
It's very, very close. And I guarantee you, if
What's funny about John Fetterman interjecting himself into this is, out of all the Democrats, he, believe it or not, sometimes sounds reasonable. That's one good thing I could say about this guy. Remember when he first ran, he was having some brain issues. He had like a stroke. He was a stroke victim. And I feel sorry for the guy, but he could not think. He could not carry on a conversation. At that first debate, he was like, hello, thank you for being here. Or goodbye, good night, thank you for being here. That was like his first comment. That was his first comment. And since then, he has sounded more moderate, more reasonable. I don't agree with his statements today because he's making excuses for this illegal behavior on the part of his party.
Dave McCormick were in the opposite situation where he was down 15 to 17,000 votes, he would absolutely want to have every last vote counted as well too. And Bob Casey has never claimed fraud.
Amid the recount drama, Dave McCormick attended last week's new senator orientation on Capitol Hill. Pennsylvania counties must hand in the results of the recount by November 27th. In Washington, I'm Kayla Gaskin.
It's just shocking how there's this clear double standard, and it's just interesting to me how there's rules for the Republicans, and if you violate these rules, we're going to trump you. We're going to put you in jail. We're going to take your mugshot. We're going to do whatever we possibly can to hammer you. And it's just unreasonable, and it's shameful. I just hope that they I hope they do the right thing. I hope that Bob Casey, he goes ahead and resigns and listen, have the recount. I get it. You're entitled to a recount, have a recount, but you have to encourage your party, Bob Casey. You have to encourage your party to follow the law. I mean, it's really just that simple. This is not rocket science to figure out, right? You guys get that. You have to follow the law. We're going to jump into this next video because I want to talk about the war, this World War III. And again, I try not to be sensational. I try not to be hyperbolic. I try to be reasonable when it comes to certain things so that we can all understand what's going on and make some intelligent thoughts, have intelligent dialogue, intelligent thoughts, and not be panicked about it. And the reality is the situation that is going on over there in Ukraine is very serious. When you have the President of the United States, Joe Biden, come out and say, hey, the weapons we're giving you, you can use them inside Russia on military targets. I mean, that's pretty reasonable, pretty common sense. And it may surprise some of you. I actually support that. I support that decision. The problem is they should have done that 3 years ago. They should have gave them that type of support. And the problem now is that Russia is turning around and saying, hey, if we get hit by a missile that is from a nuclear country, aka the United States, we're going to consider ourselves in war with that other party. And you know what? I get it. You know, that's their policy. That's their policy. It's funny though, how they're using troops from North Korea. Reports are it may go up to as much as 100,000 troops. And here's another interesting morsel. They've been using drones that were given to them by the country of Iran. Isn't that interesting? All them waves of attacks coming in to Ukraine. They have been using missiles and all kinds of stuff, including troops from other countries. And listen, when it comes to Putin, you have these woke Democrats saying, oh, it's a disgrace that Donald Trump talks to thugs and dictators. Again, we have to talk to who we have to talk to. This is nonsense that your enemy, somebody that's got all these nuclear weapons, is not worth sitting down and talking to. I assure you, Donald Trump is right about sitting down and talking to your enemies. hands down, in my opinion, that is absolutely undebatable. You've got to make this situation right. You have to talk to your enemies and bring resolution to this matter. Again, this is what happens when you have weak, feckless leadership like we've had with the Biden-Harris administration. When he gives the authority to use these weapons at such a late time, it makes the president look weak. It actually can cause more problems than it settles. He is so close to being out of office and Donald Trump taking office. I wish that he would have simply have waited and let Donald Trump make the decisions on this. I have a sneaky suspicion, though, that President-elect Trump knows exactly what's going on and that this was something that was pre-planned one way or the other. And as we discussed yesterday, I'm very confident President Trump is going to have a peace plan and impose a peace plan. There's many things he can do on both sides of the equation, whether it's Russia or whether it's Ukraine, to bring about, and I should say impose, a peace plan. You have to remember, a country like Russia, a country with vast nuclear stockpiles, they're not just going to roll over and say, okay, we lose, we're going home. I mean, President Trump himself said years ago, they're not going to lose. And I totally agree with that. They're not going to lose. We have to find a way to sit down, talk to Putin, talk to the Russian leader, and work out a solution. You cannot allow this. Let me tell you something. One of the worst games you could ever be in your entire life is what's called the escalation game. I've went through this even in business on, of course, a much smaller level. You have someone that's upset with you and they do something, and then you're mad and you do something, and you're always trying to top one another. When it comes to the escalation game, there are no winners. You're going to have a lot of hurt and a lot of pain spread around. It's a non-winning game, and the best thing to do is not play. The thing that bothers me about Putin is, unlike most of our leaders, when Putin says something, he does it. I don't see him bluffing. When he originally started putting troops in Belarus, just north of Ukraine, he was like, I'm going to invade. I'm not going to allow NATO to expand into Ukraine. I'm just not going to allow it. And most of the talking heads on TV that I watched at the time were like, oh, he's just bluffing. He's just talking. He's not going to do this. Well, of course, he did this. And we are here, and we have the problem that we're having. And this is so unacceptable. And as I was talking about yesterday, I firmly believe that they can set up a situation to where they have like a DMZ type zone in between the territory that Russia has already taken and what is still Ukraine today. Remember, Ukraine, despite the way it looks on the map, it's a huge, huge country. I believe it's much bigger than Texas. It is a vast country, and that's one of the many reasons Putin has had as far as taking the country per se. So NATO has been the problem. As we have talked about, for y'all that are new to the channel, I want you to understand, imagine if the state of Texas broke away and was its own country, and then they decided they want closer ties with Russia, and Russia started moving into Texas, and they started forming military alliances. The United States would not allow that. We would be screaming as hard as we could scream that we're not going to allow that. Matter of fact, we would be invading Texas. I'm sure y'all would agree with that. Let's listen to a little bit of this video, then I'm going to go to the comments. I just want to give everybody a little sampling of this right here, and then I'll give some thoughts on exactly how I think this
2017 and March 2020,
He's talking about the
respectively.
expansion
Anyway, all of this has annoyed Russia because they consider NATO's eastward expansion as a betrayal of the agreement made in the early 90s. In his now infamous speech to the Munich Security Conference, Putin asked what happened to the assurances our Western partners made after the dissolution of the Warsaw Pact. Before going on to quote the
That is exactly right. They were promised, Russia was promised, and there is some dispute about this as far as the United States is concerned, but I can tell you they were promised. They were promised if they dissolved the Warsaw Pact, which was the alliance Russia had with all these other satellite countries, they were promised NATO would not expand. And we have never kept our word. We keep expanding, and going right up to Russia's doorstep. You can understand why
its
it made
part,
them
NATO denies these accusations. In a 2014 online fact sheet titled Russia's Accusations, Settling the Record Straight, NATO claimed that no such...
Well, they can argue about it all they want, but it's not true.
We're going to split this video into two parts. Firstly, we're going to dig into the history books and try and figure out whether natively encouraged Eastern European states to join NATO in an attempt to undermine Russia, or whether those Eastern European states were the primary...
Yeah, the takeaway here is that this is a problem. See, Mikhail Gorbachev right here with George H.W. Bush. This goes back many years, my friends. You know, I'm a patriot. You know, I love this country. As I say often, I bleed red, white, and blue. This is the fault of the United States. We should not have kept expanding. See the map he's got right there? The red or whatever color that is, that used to be part of the Warsaw Pact. That's the way it used to be. It used to effectively be part of Russia. And then once everything broke down and all these countries were free, the United States started with this slow creep, taking more and more countries every year. I believe in 2004, you had another 4 or 5 countries that joined. And all along, even Boris Yeltsin back in the 90s was very clear. We cannot accept the continued expansion of NATO right up to our doorstep. It's not like this is a surprise to the United States. It's just that the United States figured Russia would not stand up and do something about it. And that's exactly what this all boils down to. See, unfortunately, the difference between the United States and a country like Russia is that our leaders will talk smack. Their leaders will do what they say. When they say something, when Putin says something, he means it. You get somebody like Joe Biden, wishy-washy, back and forth. This is where it causes problems. Now, tomorrow or later this week, I'm going to talk more about the capabilities of the United States. I think it will bring a lot of peace and calm when you understand just how powerful the United States is. But don't be under no illusion. This is a very serious matter. Nuclear war is something that would decimate the entire world. Bottom line, it would. At the same time, Russia knows if they went down that route, it's what we call MAD, mutually assured destruction. Basically, they're not going to kill us because we know we would kill them. And the United States, make no mistake about it, ladies and gentlemen, we have power like has never been seen in this world. We have, I believe it's 13 or 14 nuclear class submarines that patrol the waters all over the world. One of these nuclear submarines, if it was a country by itself, would be the 7th most powerful country in the world. Each submarine is part of our what we call the nuclear triad, just an assurance to make sure that if they were able to sneak attack on us and take out our missiles that are based on land, or get a hold of, say, some of the missiles that are based otherwhere, and other places, because we basically have land, we have the submarines, and then we have missiles that are carried by plane. It's called the nuclear triad. If for some reason they were able to get 2 of them, we always have those submarines traveling all over the world. And as I said, one submarine would be the 7th most powerful country in the world. Very, very awesome power that these vehicles offer, and they protect us everywhere. Having said that, it doesn't mean that you can push somebody like a Putin to the point to where they feel like their back's against the wall. Think of this. Think of 1944, 1945 Germany, and Adolf Hitler would have been a nuclear power, and you had the Allies about to come in and take them. That'd be a terrible situation, because if you're in that situation, you're going to push the button, and that would be the end of life as we know it, full stop. So I'm not trying to be a downer, and I definitely don't want to scare anybody. What I'm trying to tell you is it's unlikely that that would happen, but it's not impossible. You have Finland and Sweden even today advising their citizens and training their citizens what to do. They're telling them, start storing food, start storing water. This is how you would act in the case of an exchange or an attack or whatever. They have no choice but to be on a war footing, because you have to take somebody like Putin at his word. And when you hear the talking heads saying, oh, Putin is evil and Putin is crazy, well, I'm not going to argue about the evil part of it. I would say every argument has two sides. And I have tried very hard on this channel to show you what their side is. It's not like he doesn't have reasons for what he's doing and how they feel the way they feel. I mean, there are valid reasons, and I continue to try to talk about these on this channel. So the takeaway is this: thank God President Donald Trump is coming to power. I'm very hopeful and very confident he'll be able to negotiate a settlement, as we discussed yesterday. If you want to take a deep dive on that, you can check yesterday's video under the live on my particular channel. So I'm cautiously optimistic it's all going to be okay. You know, many times in my life we've been in a situation where it seems like it's hopeless. Seems like we're about to go to war over something, something bad's about to happen. And occasionally something bad will happen. But I have this faith that we're going to find resolution. But make no mistake about it, this is extremely dangerous. This is something that the United States has caused in large part. And it's going to take a wise and smart person like we have in President Trump to put this genie back in the bottle, so to speak. Let me make sure that I have got everyone's comments here. Oh, thanks for my buddy Mark, Sapphire Ridge News. Thank you for being here, my friend. It's good to have you. Matt, thanks again for your kind contributions and support to the channel. I appreciate that. And thanks to Zach. S.A. Sapphire and the governor this morning ordered them to stop. Yes, I think he did. And I think the late developing news in Pennsylvania is that the state Supreme Court has issued direct instructions to those municipalities to stop that knockoff that they're doing. And Fetterman does look a little weird, Zach. I agree with you on that. They have 30,000 vote difference. I didn't know it was that high. I thought it was more like 18,000, but you'll probably know more than I do on it. I have not looked, but I know it's a tight race. I believe within 0.5%. It's a mandatory recount by law, but we can check out of that. American Nana, I will never forget someone who came after him in my family. Trump, yes, exactly right. Exactly right. Bob will be fine. Yeah, I think this is going to work out really good for our country. I tell you what would be a scary situation? Could y'all possibly imagine if Kamala Harris was the next one that's supposed to be president of the United States? That would be very concerning, especially with all these world events that's going on right now. Our next president, Kamala Harris, are you kidding me? We very well may be in a situation that there may not be no return from. That would be absolutely, absolutely terrible. Yeah, I would love an all-inclusive North Korea Trump resort. I'm sure that would be scary. Yes, we are definitely in a world where it's very scary right now. There are a lot of wars going on. We have a situation that the Biden-Harris administration has effectively pushed Russia into the arms of North Korea. They have brought these people closer. Their normal enemy, which is China, they have many issues with China, and they have even border disputes with China. Now they're best amigos. Same thing with India. They're much closer to India than they used to be. They have had historical issues with the country of India, and the United States, through our crazy policies, has effectively made best friends out of Russia, North Korea, China, and Iran. And that is unsustainable. It's not tolerable. And that, my friends, has to be changed. And I'm confident that it will be changed. At least I'm extremely hopeful of that. Zach, I want to take a second to thank you again for your support of the channel. Thank you for your super sticker. And of course, my friend Matt, you are the bomb. I appreciate you guys. You guys are fantastic, and your support is very much appreciated. So, folks, I want to make sure that tonight you say your prayers, whatever. Make sure you pray for President Donald Trump and his family and his incoming administration. It is the case that is a lot of weight to be carrying on one person's shoulders. He may not show it on the outside that the pressure is a lot. That is a lot of pressure. That's a lot of weight. And we need to pray, even for Putin, believe it or not, that they would have wisdom and that they would find a way to dial this situation back. Extremely dangerous, but I'm very confident that that God will work with the powers that be and bring about a peaceful resolution to everything that's going on. That's my fondest hope, and I think that that is a reasonable expectation. I will continue on this channel to talk more about this in the days and weeks to come. So if you're interested in exactly what's going on in Ukraine and what are the ways to get out of Ukraine, I'm happy to help talk through that. So make sure, if you're still with me, might as well do it anyways. Hit the thumbs up button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. That way, whenever I go live, you'll get that alert on your phone or your iPad or whatnot, and you'll be able to tune in and join our conversation. Of course, on the Truth Social, Donald Trump's platform, you can find me simply at JR Dukes. I'm at Reach JR Dukes on the X platform. And of course, on YouTube, it's simply at JR Dukes. My friends, I want you to know that it's all going to be okay. Donald Trump is elected the next president of the United States. Jesus is always on the throne. I want you guys to always remember that. I know, American Annie, you told me that you were really concerned about what's going on. Sweetheart, just take a breath and just relax. And, you know, the truth is, I don't know if this brings y'all comfort or not. We don't live forever on this earth anyway. So it is what it is. I just don't worry. I know a rule that JR Dukes has is real simple. I do not worry about things I do not control. And this is out of our control. It's in the control of our leaders. What we can do is talk about it, discuss it, take reasonable preparations for the future, and we can pray for our leaders, the people that are entrusted with this great power that runs our countries. It's just really that simple. But my friends, it is going to be okay. I appreciate everyone who tunes in and supports this channel. I want to take a second and I pray that God will bless each and every one of you. May his special anointing be on each and every one of you, your families, your children, all those whom you love. Thank you, my friends on X. Thank you, my friend on Twitch, and of course on YouTube. My friends, I always say, keep that mind free. Never give up. Until next time, I am JR Dukes.